Hey all, welcome back to my channel. If you haven't been here before, my name is Julie and I mostly make content surrounding topics such as music, makeup, as well as mental health. Today's video is a fun one. It's the eyeshadow palette tag, so this is all makeup related. I have my palettes in a big pile. I'm sure you saw the thumbnail where I look terrified I'm going to drop one. But first I'm going to start by showing you all of my palettes, and then I'll get into the questions in the actual eyeshadow palette video tag, and we'll go from there. First up, we have the Kat Von D Shade and Light Eye Palette. It's just called Smoke, and it has 4 colors in it. It has kind of like a neutral brown, a grayish black, a gray, and a white. This is, I think, one of the only gray eyeshadows I own in this palette, and I don't reach for it too often unless I want to do a cool toned look. I definitely got this palette on sale. It's not the most pigmented. It doesn't blend super well. It works okay, but yeah, not a big fan of Kat Von D's eyeshadows, personally. Next up, this I got from Ulta as a birthday gift, and it is the NYX Happy Birthday palette. And there it is. It's got some boring colors in it. I think I used it one time. The shimmers were a joke. They barely showed up. But also I'm impatient and would rather work with more pigmented eyeshadows and just pay more. But I do still have it. I think I got it like a couple of years ago, so. Next up, we have the Wet n Wild Rosé in the Air palette, which is a dupe for this guy. But is it? I've watched videos where they say it is. I've only used this palette a couple of times, and it is very similar with the color scheme, but the pigmentation's just not there. However, I only paid $5 for it, so you can't beat the price. And we have Modern Renaissance by Anastasia Beverly Hills. I love this palette. I don't love the brush in it. I do use it sometimes, but barely. I know it's really messy, but it's been well loved. I mean, look at Venetian Red's got a big dent in it, and I'm eventually gonna hit pan on Vermeer, which is this really pinky shimmery shade, which I love for an inner corner highlight or on the lid or for a halo eye. I don't reach for this palette too often anymore, but I will say that I love a lot of the shades in here, and when I first started doing my makeup, I always reached for this palette. This palette I got as a gift from an old student, miss her. It is the Profusion Cosmetics Mix Metals Glam Palette with 9 matte and metallic eyeshadows. It's adorable. It's got a little mirror in it. I think for the price, it's good quality. I used this to do a neutral look when I went for an interview one time, and it came out really nice. This color's pretty dark. I wouldn't say the shimmers are the most pigmented, but it is a drugstore priced brand, Profusion. I do really like them as a brand, and I was excited to get this. I don't reach for it super often, but it definitely is a good palette to have in your collection if you're looking for something affordable and you like neutral looks, but maybe, you know, a little bit of color, because you do have this blue and purple going on there. Those are all my smaller palettes. Now let's get into the big boys. We have Blood Sugar by Jeffree Star. Oh my god. I think this was my 3rd eyeshadow palette that I ever got. Has a mirror in it, has the shades in it. This is my favorite palette by Jeffree Star. It is the most pigmented palette. I love Cavity, that bright pink right there. I love the purples. I love the reds. I follow this YouTuber that has done a ton of tutorials with this palette that I have followed along with. I think the pigmentation in this palette is the best out of all his palettes that I've tried, although I do only own 2, and this is definitely one of my favorite palettes of all time because I'm emo and there are beautiful red purples and a pink in there. It's just perfect for a grungy alternative look. Speaking of not grungy and alternative, although you could do that if you wanted to, and I have, woof, So Jaded, ColourPop X Kathleen Lights. I love Kathleen Lights. She's my favorite bigger makeup YouTuber, and these shades, this freaking gold, it is a green toned gold. It's beautiful. You do not need to even put concealer down or anything, just throw it on. They do have a couple glitters in here. That was people's main qualm with the palette, that glitters are not eye safe, but I'm a contact lens wearer and I have sensitive eyes. I've honestly been very careful applying them and have had no issue. This is a great starter palette too. Since it's from ColourPop, it was affordable. I believe it was like $40, but for how many shades you get, it's really incredible. I love Citrine. That yellow shade is really cool. Carnelian is a good one. I love Smoky Quartz as a unique inner corner highlight. It's just a great palette. When I saw this came out, I immediately bought it. And I don't usually do that with palettes, but I needed it in my life. Next up, you've seen me use this. You've seen me review it if you've watched my makeup video on it. It is the Jawbreaker palette by Jeffree Star. Here it is. It has a mirror. What I like is that it can bend back and then you can just have this. So this is pretty much everything you could ever want. Has all the colors of the rainbow in it. This shade Lemon Drop at the bottom is the inner corner highlight I have on today. I actually used this palette to do the look I have on today. I have Cherry Wet, the pink in the bottom row. I have that royal blue, which is soaked. And then I also have the purple. I am a fan of this palette, but I find that the pigmentation is not perfect across the board. The deeper shades, as well as this shimmer shade right here, are very pigmented. Even Bubblegum's pretty pigmented. Sour as well as Gumdrop are not as pigmented as I'd like them to be, but I just use a white concealer if I'm looking for better pigmentation, or I build it up with more layers. We have two more palettes to talk about and then I'll do the tag. This is a super old guy. This is the Morphe Jaclyn Hill palette, and you got pretty much everything you need here for a starter palette because you have these kind of neutral tones. You got some deep reds, but you can make them grungy. I wouldn't say they're emo. They're not like red, they're more orangey red. I love the blues down here. These are gorgeous. I've been using these couple of blues lately. This shimmer is really nice for a half cut crease, I personally think. And the black in this is not that pigmented. It's really not. It's not anything to write home about. I don't love it. I also heard that Jaclyn Hill changed the formula on this. If you bought it more recently, I got this quite some time ago. I like it, but I don't find myself reaching for it. The only reason I ever reach for it if I am doing a colorful look is because I want a nice inner corner highlight, and I just mix these first two shades to get a really bright inner corner highlight that pops. Okay. Last palette here, the Morphe James Charles palette. I just reviewed this palette, but I will briefly speak on it. It was $39. It's freaking gorgeous. The colors are pretty pigmented for the price. The black in here is a lot nicer than the Jaclyn Hill one, and the pan for the black is bigger. If you're into neutral looks, you can do that, but if you want to play with color, I definitely would suggest getting this palette, and especially because it's Morphe, it's nice because it is an affordable palette. It truly is an artistry palette as well, so it's great if you want to be a makeup artist because it's so versatile. There's a lot you can do here. With clients, you have an unlimited amount of looks. Now, moving into the questions on the eyeshadow palette tag. Show your newest palette. Easy. Y'all know I just recently got Morphe X James Charles. That's the most recent. Show your oldest palette. Modern Renaissance, my very first palette. Love Letter got well loved, as did Venetian Red and Red Ochre for sure. Show your most expensive palette. I believe Jawbreaker retails for $58. That's just too much to pay for this palette, in my opinion. I really don't think it's anything to write home about. I do like it and have found a way to work with it, and some of the shades, as I said, are better than others, but I believe I got it on sale for around like $45 or so, but still. You can get a Morphe palette and go buck wild with colors, so you don't really need this. Show your most affordable palette. Oh, that's gonna have to be, well, technically this one was free, but we don't care about it. It's definitely this because it's only $5. It's a drugstore brand palette. Show your everyday palette. How do I even answer this question? I mean, as of late, I'm reaching for James Charles because I just got that palette. Before that, I had just got Jawbreaker and was always reaching for Jawbreaker. It's really just about whatever palette I get the most recently. I try to use it up a good amount because I did pay for it, and I I don't think I've ever hit pan on an eyeshadow. I'm a little ridiculous and need to stop buying palettes. But I really can't answer the question of an everyday palette. Besides, if you want a neutral look, then I would go for a Modern Renaissance because you have such nice transition shades and the shades in here blend really, really well. Show your most colorful palette. Oh, this is hard. It's hard because I feel like it's just a tie between Jawbreaker and Morphe James Charles. But I can't talk about Morphe James Charles enough because it has everything you need. I got the little color card in it. It's gonna have to be Morphe James Charles. That's the most colorful palette I have so far. Show your smallest palette. Well, at first I thought it was Wet n Wild, but look at Kat Von D. Kat Von D is definitely smaller and maybe broken now that I dropped it. Nope, we're good. Show your biggest palette. Morphe James Charles. Is this the answer for like most of them? I feel like it is. Show your palette with the best memory. I don't even know what that entails specifically, but it's gotta be Blood Sugar. Has to be, because I have a signature red emo look that I got from a tutorial and I love it, and it makes me feel super, super emo because I used to wear Hot Topics red eyeshadow back in the day, so it brings up that memory. And I love tapping into my emo-ness, don't mind me. So I'm gonna have to go with this one. Show a palette not worth the hype. Well, I did talk some smack about Jawbreaker, even though my first impression was I like it first. This is not worth the money or the hype, in my opinion, when you can just get a Morphe palette. And also, this was hyped so much. I think this was the second palette I ever got, and yeah, there's some colors in it, but Jacqueline could have gone more colorful. This is boring. It's really boring, and the pigmentation isn't anything to write home about, but for the price, I guess I can't complain. Show your favorite palette from a favorite brand. Well, again, Blood Sugar has to be my favorite palette of all time. I don't always reach for it, but it's just because I can do the most emo looks, and the pigmentation is great across the board. I definitely like the eyeshadow palettes I have from Jeffree Star for the most part, and his lipsticks, but I will not be purchasing from Jeffree Star anymore, so I'm just sticking with these palettes. And I'm not gonna go as far as to call him my favorite brand. Probably my favorite brands are NYX and ColourPop. Show your most used palette. Well, my most used palette, of course, is gonna be Modern Renaissance because I've had it the longest. I got it years ago, and yes, I know eyeshadows expire. But I really, really loved this palette, and it was a good way for me to start working on blending eyeshadow better and improving my technique. All right, that's all I have for you today. Thank you so much for watching. Please give this video a like if you enjoyed it, and I'd love for you to subscribe to my channel as well. Leave me a comment down below letting me know what eyeshadow palettes you have. You can follow me on my social medias if you would like. My Instagram is Julie_counseling. My Twitter is JulieCounseling with no underscore, and my Facebook page will be linked down below as well. And I'll catch you on the flip side. Bye, guys.